Welcome back to the Rich YouTube channel. In today's class, we are going to learn how to make this beautiful notched collar double-breasted dress. Okay, it's a high-low dress. It has high-low effect on the flare attached to the waist. It also has a fabric belt holding it all together. The tutorial on the fabric belt is also already on the channel if you want to learn how to. It has two side pockets, as you can see. It's very beautiful and it's really easy to make. I'm going to take you through how I was able to cut and sew this in this class. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so this is a notched collar double-breasted jacket. So this is the front and this is the back. I already drafted my back. It's just a regular bodice. This is my shoulder slope, the neckline, this is the armhole, and this is the half length. It's going to have a flare, so the upper part stops on the waistline. So for the front, what I did here was just to mark my allowance. Okay, this is my allowance. Remember I said it's going to be a double-breasted blazer. So now it depends on how much you want it to overlap. For me, I have 5.5 inches here. You can do 4, you can do more or less, basically depending on how much you want it to overlap, but mine here is 5.5. So what I did was to measure 5.5 from here, and then I made that into a straight line. So now I'm going to use my marker to make it bolder so that we can see this well. So all measurements, my basic bodice now is going to start from here, not from here. Okay, and then on the upper part, it's going to have like a joint collar. The collar is going to be extended from the front to the back. So because of that, I'm going to be leaving allowance for that as well. Just leave enough, like 5 inches is okay. So you measure that from your upper part as well, and then you're going to make that into a straight line. So this means that your basic bodice is going to be around this box. So because I have already drafted the back, so what I'm going to do is just to place the front. You can redraft it, but for me, I'll just place my back on the front pieces like this, and then I'm going to use my tracing wheel to trace out the lines. I've already done that and I can clearly see the place where I traced out. So what I'm going to do now is to place my ruler, and then I'm going to mark out. So that is my armhole line. This is my waistline where it stops. Okay, so this is my side seam. So what I'm doing here is exactly what I have on my back. Okay, this is the armhole line. The armhole for the front is going to be slightly different from the back, so I just have the armhole line. I'm yet to create my armhole. So this is my shoulder slope and this is the back neckline. So for the front, the back I used 1 inch by 3 inches. So for the front, I'm going to be using 3 inches by 3 inches. So that is the 3 inches over there. I'm going to take my curved ruler and then I'm going to go ahead and connect them together. So if you are not sure, you can recheck where you have your 3 inches. You can see that it is exactly on this point. So that is it for my front neckline. Here I'm going to divide what I have here into two, and then I'm going to get the midpoint, and on that midpoint I'm going to mark 1/2 inch, and that is where I'm going to mark my armhole for the front. Okay, so now all of that is done. The next thing we need to do now is to go ahead and start creating the lapel. So it depends on how you want your lapel to be. You need to note where your breaking point is going to be, but for me the breaking point is around the waist area, which is here. So what I'm going to do now is to extend this waistline into the overlap that we have here. Okay, and then once it is extended like that, the next thing now is to get a connecting line from my neckline all the way to the breaking point. So it's up to you. If your breaking points for you is going to be on your, if it's going to be on your chest line, you can do that. If it's going to be on your under bust, you can mark where your under bust, and then you're going to extend. For me now, I can decide that I want to come up by 1 inch from my waistline so that it is not exactly on my waist point. So what I just need to do is to mark that 1 inch upward now, and then make it into a straight line, and then I'm going to do the connection like that. So it's totally up to you. So I'll get a long ruler now and then connect. So I have my ruler here. You can see I'm placing it. I'm placing from here to here, and then I'm going to make that into a straight line. So I'm doing this because I don't really have a defined neckline measurement. So if you have a special place where you want it to overlap at the chest line, mine is a little high, so this is fine for me. So the neck depth for this is around 5.5 inches, which is perfect because if you look at the thumbnail, it is not exposing anything. So let's say you want yours to expose maybe a little bit of your bust. So you're not going to connect straight like this. What you need to do is to first identify where you want your neckline to stop. That's where the overlap is going to be. Okay. So once you identify that, let's say I want it to be around 8 inches. So what I will do is to come here now and then mark 8 inches. Let me use a biro so that it's not going to confuse us. So what you need to do is to come here and mark that neck depth. So once you mark the neck depth, the first connection you are going to be doing is to connect from your neck width to that neck depth first, like this, and then from there, from that neck depth, now you now connect it to your breaking point. I hope that is clear enough. So now remember that I said that we're going to be extending our back collar with the front. So to do that, you're going to bring your back panel, your back bodies, and then you're going to mark what you have on your neckline. This is the back neckline, and of course you know that the collar of the back is going to be sewn on this neckline. That is why you need to get that measurement. So once you have that measurement, you're going to measure it. For me, try to place your tape in a curve way so that you're going to get it. So this is around 3.25 for me. So I want to be sure. You can use the cm side so that you can get it accurately. So this is 8.5 cm. Okay, and 8.5 cm is around 3.25 and a bit. So I'm going to be using the cm side. So what I'm going to do now is to extend this lapel line all the way to the back by the measurement that I took for the back. Okay, so for this to relax well, you can just come out here by maybe half an inch of quarter of an inch and then reconnect. Okay, just a little bit so that it can sit well on the neckline, and then you find a way to reconnect it. Sorry, my cough is not in. So what I'm going to do now is to go ahead now and extend this by that back measurement. So you can see that I have extended it up to here, and what I will do is to mark the 8.5 cm. Okay, 8.5 cm. Your tape has two sides. This is the cm side, this is the inches side. We are used to this inches side, but because I want to get it to the nearest possible, that's why I'm using the cm. So if you want to use inches, it's also okay. So now this is 8.5 cm here, and then I'm going to go ahead and mark that. Okay, so once you have that, you need to determine the width that you want for your collar, how wide you want it to be. Okay, that is what you're going to measure here. So for me, around 4 inches is fine. So here I'm going to go ahead and mark 4 inches so that by the time I sew it and then I fold it, I'll have, when you fold the collar over each other, you have still have around 2 inches, which is okay for me. So this is 4 inches. Okay, so now it's going to have like a notched collar. So that is what we are going to be creating there. So for that, you're going to be working on with this our natural 3 inches by 3 inches neckline that we have, and then we're going to be extending it like this. So now for the extension, it depends on how bold you want it to be. It can be around 3 to 4 inches. So for me, I think the 3.5 inches that I have here is what I'm going to be maintaining. So now from here, now you are going to take your slightly curved ruler and then you're going to connect it like this to your breaking point. Okay, so this is what we have now. So the next thing now is to create the notch collar. So for me, what I'm going to do is just to divide what height, the extension that I have, into two. But you can mark 2 inches or 1.5 inches depending on what you have. So once I divide that, I'm going to check what I have. I have 1.75. So I'm going to go ahead now and then, so I'm going to come up here by 1 inch. This is just like a guide. Okay, and then I'm going to the same 1.75 that I did here. I'm going to slant like this, using this as a guide, and then get where I can get the 1.75 inch here as well. And then if you want it more open, you can open it out a little bit more. So I have the 1.75 inches here, and then I'm going to take my ruler and then I'll connect like this. So you can see now that we have that notch effect. The next thing you need to do now is to connect from here to here, and you're done drafting. Okay, so now you just take your ruler now and then connect. This is where the 1.75 is, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect it to the neckline. So that is my collar. So the next thing now is to go ahead and cut it out. If you notice there is no dart on this pattern, that's because this is not a fitted, it's like a loosely fitted blazer jacket. So I don't have a dart on it. If you want yours to be fitted, you can add that. But I'm going to be cutting like a facing. So for it to be easy for me, before after using this to cut my main fabric, so I'm going to be using lining, both lining and facing for the front. For the back, it's just going to be lining. But for the front, it's going to be both lining and facing, so that by the time I turn my collar, the main fabric is what is going to be showing on the lapel area. So for that, I can create like a dot line illusion by just dividing what I have here into two. You can use any measurements that you want, but I'm just trying to make this easy for me. So here as well, I'm going to mark around 4 inch, and then I'm going to connect the two together. I'm not taking any dart, please. I just want to use this to be able to cut out my lining. So this side I'm going to cut it on lining, and this side I'm going to be cutting on the lace fabric, so that by the time it is opened, a little bit of the lace is still going to be showing. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Okay, so I have cut it out. You can see these are my pieces. This is the back and this is the front, and you can see. So all you just need to do is to cut out the collar. Okay, and when you are cutting the collar, you make sure that when you cut on your fabric, you notch this part to guide you when you want to sew it back to the lapel. So you notch where the notch, where you have your notch collar effect. You notch that point. You can notch your center front as well. Just important points to guide you when you are sewing your collar up. So this is what we have, and when we fold the lapel, this is what we are going to have, and this is how it's going to sit by the time you sew it. You can see the notch collar effect. So if you want yours more open at this point, you can manipulate it anyhow you want. So you can actually work with your collar like this, but I just like to open up my collar a little bit so that it can, just a little bit, not so much. I like to just open it up. So what I do is this shoulder line, I can just connect it like this, or you can just make it on another point, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Remember that this is the part that you're going to sew to your neckline, so it has to be exactly the same. You cannot manipulate anything on this side. Let me put it back so that we'll get what I'm doing. So this part is what we cut out. This part is what we cut out from our neckline. You cannot touch that part, you cannot do anything to the part. It's only this part that I want to open up a little bit, and it's not going to be so much, just maybe quarter of an inch or half an inch is what I'm doing. So I'm going to cut it, and then you're going to stop when you get to your neckline, because you are not doing anything to the neckline, and then I'm just going to open it up like this, just so that it rolls better. So what I will do now is to just place this paper under it, and then I'm going to glue it and then connect it back. I've glued it, as you can see. So what I'm going to do now, you can see that it is no longer aligning. So I'm just going to take my ruler now and then just find a way to just make them align well. Okay, so just like that, and then I'm going to cut it out. So make sure that this center back part is cut on fold. That is why you have that sign there. Okay, so now we're going to cut it on our fabric, but like I said, I'm going to be working with a flare for the lower part, so I like to cut the flare first so that my fabric will be enough. I'll cut the flare first so that all the pieces that I have from that, I'll be able to use it to cut this part in pieces. So now we'll move to the flare. Okay, so the lower part is going to be an a high-low flare. I'm using a lace fabric. This is the fabric that I'm using. You can see it's a lace and it has this selvage and it's just 5 yards. So, and it's going to be a full 360-degree flare. So because of that, in order for me not to have shortage, remember, you cannot manage fabric for flare, but you can still manage to cut your half length. So what I'm going to do is to cut my flare first, and then the pieces that I have from it, I'm going to get my half length, the sleeve and the rest. It's going to be a full length flare, so it's really big. I'm going to explain what I'll be doing with this paper. Okay, so to get your flare, what you need to note first is your half length. Okay, so I'm just going to be using figures. Okay, you need your half length. That's the one you have already cut earlier. So for me, the half length I'm working with is 17. Then you need your full length for your dress. Remember I said it's high low. So for the high part, which is going to be the short part, which is the front, I want it to be 40 inches. That's just around the knee length. And then for the back, which is going to be the longest part, I want it to be 60 inches. So these three figures are very important. Then you're going to need your waist measurement. But in this case, remember that it has overlap. Okay, so let's say your actual waist is 36, and then you're going to have overlap of like the one we did. The overlap is 5.5 inches. So that's 5.5 times 2 because it's going to be lapping on each other for the front. So that's going to be 11. So you will need to add that to your actual waist measurement before you now get your new waist, which is in this case 47 inches. Okay. So these measurements are very important. So once you have this measurement, to know the actual length that you will need for your flare in front and back, you just need to take out the 17 that you have already cut from both of them. So if I take out 17 from this, I'll have 23. And if I take out 17 from this, I think I'm going to have 43. Okay, so these are the length, the measurement that we're going to use for our length. And like I said, it's going to be a full flare. So for to get the radius of your full flare, what you need is your waist circumference divided by 6.28. It's a constant. So the waist circumference that we're working with now is 47. So what I'm going to do now is to divide this 47 by 6.28. Whatever I have is going to be the radius of my flare. So that's going to be around 7 point something. So let's assume this is 7. So to fold your fabric, please just, so we have this now. We have this to be the length of the flare in front. We have this to be the length of the flare at the back. And then this is going to be the radius of our flare. So to know the amount of fabric you're going to need, all you need to do is to simply add the radius to both your length in front and your length at the back. So front length is equal, will be equal to your actual length 23 plus 7, which is the radius, and then the back length is going to be your actual length for the back 43 plus 7, which is the radius, and this is going to be 30, and this is going to be 50 inches. Okay, so the amount of fabric you will need now is going to be this plus this, which is 18 inches. So you can see that it is a lot. That was why I said I cannot fold on the, you, it will not capture everything. So but this is just how you can know the amount of fabric you're going to need. So now we'll move to cutting the flare. So the 80 inches that we calculated is very long. I cannot get that from my lace fabric because the lace length, the length of this lace that I'm working with, the full length of the lace is just about is around 46 to, it's like Ankara length. It's not so long. So what I'm going to do now is to cut the left side separately and the right side separately so that I'm going to have a joining at the back. And because my lace has a selvage, it has this selvage, so I'm going to cut it in a way that this selvage is going to be at the center back and it's also going to be at the center front where they are overlapping. So just work with me and see what I am doing. So like I said, we are going to be cutting the front separately and the back separately, which means you are not going to be folding. Remember, if you want to cut your actual 360-degree flex, you fold into two first, and then you fold again into four. That is if you are cutting the whole four sides, the one, two, three, four, the front and back. Let me just put it like that. If you are cutting the front and back together, we fold into four. But for this, I'm going to cut the left side of the front and back separately, and the right side of the front and back separately, which means what I'm going to do is to simply just fold my fabric into two. So you can see I am folding into two now, not four, because I'm going to be cutting them separately. So now I have folded this into two. The next thing now is to cut out my flare. It's going to be high low. It's an high low flare. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that I get like a round figure for both the high and the low before I now adjust it. So to do that, what I'm going to do now is to add the there are several ways you can do this. What I'm going to do now is to add the 30 and 50 together and then use it to cut it, or you can decide to just cut yours like this. Remember, this is 30 inches, so for this you can mark 30 inches. Of course, we cannot get up to 30 inches here, so let's say we are doing maybe 8 to 24. So what you need to do now is to just mark 8 inches, which is going to be for the high, and then the rest is going to be for the low, and then you now get your radius. But this is easier. So to do this, what I'm going to do now is to add this 30 plus 50 and work with 80 inches first. So meaning what I have here is 80 inches. Okay, from this upper part to this part is 80 inches. Now to cut a full flare, I will simply just fold like this so that I can have something round. Now, because I have folded it, I no longer have 80 inches. I have 40 here and 40 here. So you are going to fold it like this, okay? And then you will measure your 40 inches all around. In this case, I can only measure 12. So what I'm going to do now is to take 12 all around and then measure it. Now we are cutting both the high and low out together before we remove the high from the low. So now we are cutting both of them, both high and low. We are cutting it together now, and then when we're done, we're going to remove the high from the low. So once you do that, I'm going to connect it together, and then I'll grab my scissors and simply cut it out. This way, I already have my round curved shape for my flare. Now, this is everything. You will still have your 80 inches, just that you have 40 here, 40 here. By the time you open it out, you are going to have 80. Okay? But now it's no longer four corner. You now have your perfect round shape now. So now to work with your high low, what you need to do now is to make sure that you measure out your high. So the high in this case is 30, and then the rest is going to be for the low, which is 50. Remember, we have 80. So that's 30 plus 50. That will give you 80. But we don't have up to that here. So I think we have 24 here. So let's just use 8 inch or 10 inches for our high, and then 14 inches for the low. So now let me mark the high. The high is going to be 10 inches, which stops here. So it is on that 10 inches mark that I'm going to fold like this. Okay. So once you fold it, you will see that this is shorter than this. The first one is going to be 10, which is the short one, and then the long one is going to be 14 and a half. So you can see. So in your own case, by the time you are done folding, when you place your tape, you should have 30 inches for this, and then when you take this down, you should have 50 inches. Please take note. So once it is folded like this, the next thing now is to now remove your radius of 7 inches. Remember that the actual length that we were working with was actually, the length was actually 23. We added 7 inches radius to both of them. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove the radius. So I can't remove 7 inches from this, it's going to be too short, so I'll just remove 3 inches instead of 7. But you remove whatever radius that you are working with. So now you are going to mark your radius all around, And once you mark it, you take your scissors and then you cut it out. Okay, so once you cut it out, this is what you are going to have. You are going to have your front like this high, and then the back is going to be low. And then in this case, I'm going to be able to still maintain my selvage. Okay, my selvage is still going to the scallops. I will still have the scallop in front, and then I'll have the scallop at the back. Because I did not touch it, you can see it is straight. The only part that I curved is this part. Okay, my scallop is going to remain intact here and here. So what you just need to do now is to fold your lace again. So this is half, you can see half of the bodice. This is front and this is back. So what you need to do again is to now fold your fabric again, and then place it right side facing right side like this, and then you cut out the other side so that you can now join them together at the back. I don't know if you understand this. So there is a mistake in the folding, so let me explain that. Remember that I said that you are not supposed to fold into four. Okay, you are not supposed to fold into four like this. You are just only going to fold into two, because you want to cut them out separately. So please just fold into two, don't fold into four. I don't know if you get that. Fold into two so that you have it just on one side like this, and then you use the other side to cut out the remaining side. Okay, so for this, like I said, I want my selvage to be at the center front and the center back as well, this design. Okay, so I'm just going to use this marker to represent it so that you will see that we are not going to be touching that side. Okay, this is my selvage, which means this is the yard side and this is the length side. So take note of how I'm folding the fabric. Now it's an high-low effect, which means the front is going to be short while the back is going to be long. And this is what we are working with. This is the measurement that we are working with. For the front, our measurement is 23 inches, which is the length, plus the radius 30. And for the back, our length is 43 inches plus the radius, which is 50. Altogether we have 18 inches. So that means what I'm going to measure out on my fabric here is 18 inches. You are going to be able to measure that because it is on the yard side, so you can have as many yard as possible. Do you understand that? So now I'm going to simply take my tape now and then measure out 80 inches, which is the total length that I need for both the front and the back. This is not up to 80, this is just 36. So that is what we are going to be working with. We'll assume this to be our 80 inches. Now, to cut out the flare, before you take out your high and low, I like to first cut out my circle flare so that it can be really circular and really nice. So to cut out that circular flare, bear in mind that this fabric is not folded. You can see it is a straight fabric, it is not folded at all, it's not folded yet. So to cut out my circle, what I'm going to do now is to now add this together and divide by 2. So I'll use that to cut the circle before now distinguishing between the front and back. So what I have here is 80. 80 divided by 2 is going to give me 40. So what I'm going to do now is to now fold this once. You can see, remember that if you are cutting the two sides together, the left and right side, you are supposed to fold into 4. But in this case, I'm just folding it once. Okay, you are supposed to fold into 2. Fold like this and then like this. But for this one, I'm folding just once. As you can see, I'm just folding it once like this. So now if you fold this once, remember everything is supposed to be 80. Now that you have folded, you have 40 inches here and then 40 inches here. So what you need to do now is to take your tape now and form your flare. So how do you do that? You take it at this point here and then you mark your 40 inches all around. In this case, what we have is 18 inches. So I will just simply mark 18 inches all around, like you will do for your normal flare. I'm going to mark 18 inches all around here, and then I'm going to connect it together and cut. So after doing that, that is when you go ahead now and divide your front and back. So you can see this is what I have. I'm going to take my scissors and then I'm going to cut that out. And when I open it out, you will see that my selvage is going to be intact. I did not touch the selvage part. Okay, so this is what we have now for both front and back. So if you open it out, you can see that we still have our selvage intact, and then by the time you open it, you will still have your 80 inches, which is your total length for the front and back. Now, to cut out the front from the back, what you need to do now is to simply measure out your front. So in this case, the front is 30 and the back is 50. So I'll take my tape now and measure out 30. But this is not up to 30. Remember, we have 36 in total. So what I'm going to do now is to use maybe 14 inches for 14 minus 36 is going to give me around 22 inches. So what I'm going to use for front is going to be 14, and then for the back is going to be 22 inches. So to do that, you just from the beginning here, you're going to measure out your front. In this case is 14, and once I get to 14, I'm going to fold. Okay, I'm going to fold it like this. So you can see now that this is shorter than what we have here. So this is my front and this is my back. So you need to make sure that you're doing the right thing. If I place my tape here, you will see that I have 14 inches, which is my front, and then here I have 22 inches, which is my back. That is what you are supposed to have. Working with our actual measurement, what it means is that here we will have 30, and then here we will have 50 inches, altogether 80 inches. That's what you are supposed to have. So once you are done folding like this, you are not going to measure out your radius. Remember that our radius here is 7 inches. What we did is just to only add this 7 inches to our front length and our back length. So now we are going to be taking out that 7 inches. But I'm not going to measure out 7 inches from this because it's going to be too much. So I will just measure out maybe 4 inches. So now from this angle here, you place your tape and then measure out your radius. Okay, so you measure out your radius like this, and then you're going to connect. So once you measure out your radius and connect, you're going to grab your scissors now, and then you're going to cut this out. So this is the radius that you're going to be sewing to your waist. And now you have successfully cut out one side of your flare. So this is going to be the front, and this is going to be the back. So all you need to do now is to fold your lace again, and then now place this right side facing right side, making sure that you align your selvage, and then you cut out the second side. I hope I've been able to explain that. This is the one that I cut out. You can see this is my flare. Okay, and it is two separate flare. This is the center front, which is the short one. You can see, my selvage. Okay, this is the short one. You can see my selvage here, and if I measure it, you will see that I have 23 inches. Can you see that? From my waist to the hem is 23 inches, and then this is the center back. You will notice that I pinned it. That's because I want to sew it so that the selvage is going to be showing. So I just place this on each other like this, and then sew along the selvage. So this is the center back. You can see that my lace selvage is there, and the length of this one is 50. So I just cut two different pieces separately, just like I explained to you, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew it back so that I'll have this scallop at the back, and then when it overlaps in front as well, I will have this scallop there. That is how I want it. So that is how I cut out mine. So now that I have cut out my flare, I'm going to use the remaining pieces to cut the half length. Okay, so this is our half length. You can see this is the center back. There's no joining, so I cut it on fold, and then I cut my lining as well. Okay, this is my back, and this is the front. Okay, so this is the front. I have cut out the front as well. I cut out to where the notch collar is going to stop. I place the notch on that point. You can also place a notch at your center front if you want, and then you had your necessary allowance. So this is the main fabric. Then for the lining, just like I explained, I cut lace up to here. Okay, I have my lace up to here. You had your seam allowance. Please remember, you're going to join it to the lining, and then the lining is up to here. Okay, I have my lining, so I have the little piece of lining to complete it, and you had seam allowance to that as well, so that by the time you join it, it's going to be a complete piece. Okay, so this is the front, And then the last piece that we have is the collar. So remember that your collar has to be cut on fold here if you don't want to join, and if you don't mind joining, you add seam allowance to it. So I've cut out my collar, and then this is the place the notch is going to stop. So I'm going to just place a notch there as well. This is the center front, and this is where the notch is. So I'll just fold there and then place a notch there. So I cut two using my lace fabric for the two, for both the fabric and the main, for the fabric and the lining. So that is all you need to cut. It's going to have just a basic sleeve. So this is the sleeve. I have cut out the sleeve, is a three-quarter sleeve, and then I made sure that I have my selvage at the hem of the sleeve. So the next thing now is to sew. If you want, you can add interfacing to this, which I think I'm going to add cotton stay to the lining. Okay, I'm going to add it to the collar, and then I'm going to add it to the short part of the lining, which is the lace part of the lining, which is this part. This is just to help the lapel to form really well. But please, I advise that you use cotton stay for this, because it's not Ankara, and you can see that it's almost see-through. You don't want to use paper stay that can cut and now make it look well. So I'll go ahead and do this now. It's very simple to sew. The main work is on the cotton. I've gone ahead to join the stay. The I've laminated this with my stay, you can see, and then I join the lining part to the main fabric. So after doing that, you're going to open your seam. This is what we have. I can see that the stay is barely noticeable. This is the second side. Okay, you can see what the second side looks like as well. Okay, so, and also for the collar, I've also prepped the collar. So what I did was to iron stay on the collar, just like I explained. I just ironed to one, but you can iron to both the lining and main fabric if you have enough. Then I place the lining and the main fabric on each other. So after placing them on each other, you go ahead and sew. So you're going to sew the upper part here. Remember, this is the part you're going to sew to your neckline. So you leave that opened. You sew the upper part, and then you sew up to where your notch is. Okay. So you're going to sew up to where the notch is, just like this, and then you notch it and turn. Then you give it a good press as well. So that is all I have done. So now the next thing is to join the front and back together on the shoulder. So I'm going to place the back and front, right side facing right side. This is the back, and these are my two fronts. So I'll go ahead and join it on the shoulder. I'll do the same thing for the lining as well. Then I'll go to bring it back to show us how to sew in the collar. Okay, you can see now that I have sewn it. So this is the lining, join the shoulder, and this is the main fabric. Now I'm going to bring my main fabric, and then I'll pin the collar around the neckline. So this is my collar. I've already notched the center. So you can notch the center for your main fabric as well, so that I can guide you on how to pin it. I like to pin first before I sew. I think you can sew it without it. You can just sew. It's advisable to pin. So this is what we have. I'm going to take out the stone. So simply pin the collar around it. So you match your notch to notch towards the front. Ideally, it should stop where your notch is. You can see my notch. This should stop there. We are going to do the other side as well. And then I've gone ahead to sew it now. As you can see, the collar is sewn, and you can see that it stops where the notch is. So the next thing now is to use your lining to cover up this part. Then you're going to go. Okay, so you're going to use your lining to cover this part up, so that it's not going to be rough like this. So just like we did, remember we have already sewn the lining. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and pin this all around the neckline, and then I'm going to pin the center front as well, and then sew. Okay, so I have gone ahead to sew it. You can see what the inside looks like now. So it's just going to cover the rough edge. Then you go ahead and notch it because it's a curve, it's neckline. So you have to notch it and iron it properly. So this is what we have now. So the next thing now is to close up the side. So it's up to you the type of finishing that you want to do for yours. If you want it to be an inseam finish, you're going to sew your main fabric separately and your lining separately so that nothing is going to show outside. Then if you want to sew it outwards so that the person can adjust easily, then you're going to use your lining to turn the main fabric separately before you join. So once you do that, you're going to use your measurement to join it by the side, and then you sew the flare to it and then fix your sleeve and your dress will be ready. So this is what it looks like. You can see our collar, our notch collar there. You can see how it is standing well. So this is how you make it. You can see that the where it's overlapping is not so deep, so you can control that with your pattern. When you are drafting your pattern, you can determine the neck depth you want to work with. So that is the collar at the back as well, and you can see that it is continuous to the front. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed this, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.